Is the mic turned on? Is the mic turned on your head? Checking your head and turn on up there. Hello?
If City Hall did go into Congress, I mean, if City Hall did go into stuff, what would happen to Congress?
Is that too loud?
It is probably limited answer. First of all, the instructor said that that's going to happen no matter what. But the main concern is that, were you at some of the first meetings?
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, I was. I was at the rally, to the big marching rally.
Yeah, but did you see the plans that they had for 2,500 car parking?
Oh, I saw that parking lot in Armstrong Park, big double
Strong
triple
talk.
swing
That's the
parking lot.
subject for tonight.
That's ridiculous.
I'm eavesdropping. Can y'all come further up? And you're too comfortable. Can y'all move a little further up? Oh, what kind of question?
But y'all close back there, it's 6 feet apart up here, and y'all congested back there. Yeah, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces when we come up.
And we have light refreshments, you're free to pick up a bottle of water or snack.
It's also better optics for us to look like we have a crowd on the camera.
Okay, I didn't hear that. Can you repeat it?
Where did you find that? Yeah, that would be cute. First of all, I just asked me, did my hand get tired?
Can we get audio so we can hear Cheryl? Oh, yes. Can you hear me, Andrew? Respond, Andrew. No, I know Andrew. Most of the people in here I know. So I can say thanks for coming out tonight. I cheated. I said 5:30 because I wanted everyone to be here by 6. So we could start at 6 o'clock and do exactly 2 hours if need be, and not we'll leave before 8 o'clock. It's 5 minutes to 6.
Ooh, thank you.
We can't get many more people in the room. I think we had 20. So everyone else is going to be asked to give their comments, thoughts, ideas, and vision on Zoom, Facebook. They can go to the New Orleans Cultural Preservation Committee Facebook page. It's going to be live, and they also can go to the Zoom. Save Our Soul Zoom link. And live. You don't have that on the presentation screen? Nope. Yeah, job. Yeah, Reverend Manny. Well, we know someone is on the Zoom. A few people. Okay, I'm gonna stop climbing around. All right, so thank you all for coming out tonight. We're about to get started with our visioning for what we would like to see. Hey, Randolph, I couldn't help myself because I asked him Saturday to make sure he come. He has some good ideas and suggestions. All right, then whatever. I'm glad to see you here, Randolph.
Is it Randolph Scott? I haven't seen him in a long time.
Okay, now that we got that out of the way, the nicest. So we're going to, once again, thank you all for coming out tonight. I know you could be anywhere else, but you chose to be here. And it's a very important subject. What we would like to see at the Armstrong Park Complex, which includes the Mahalia Jackson Theater Performing Arts, which is in, which is the reason why we're here, because we don't want to see the city of New Orleans relocate to that site. But there are other things that's going on in Armstrong Park, are not going on in Armstrong Park. So if we are successful, we're coming up with a vision that can be turned into a plan. This is the goal. And we did not want to create a vision or plan without citywide and especially community input. So that's why we're here tonight. So can I get that off the screen? Or is it on the screen? Yeah. That's Natalie, Manning. That's working on the presentation, and Renard is doing the Zoom and Facebook. So thank you all for helping us out. Jackie, the soccer women, Prince, all of you all. Okay, so a few months ago, when we were faced with,
I'm sure if anyone else can hear the audio, but I can't hear the audio.
who is that?
I'm not sure if folks are great, but
Jack can't hear the audio. That's a bad thing.
no. I hear it, but I said I know it would be.
I don't hear anything either.
So, yeah. I said, somebody else.
Oh, you have to unmute. Unmute, Natalie. Can you hear me now, Josh? You're gonna get the feedback. Can you hear me, Josh?
Yeah, yes, I can now.
All right. We have it worked out. And let me just say, this is my first time doing anything like this digitally. So bear with me and the people, Natalie and Renee, that's trying to work through this. Hey, Brian. What I was about to say is that a few months ago, when it was brought to the community, or should I say the city, a group of us came together because we thought it was important that we speak on the issue of City Hall proposed plan to relocate all of City Hall to the municipal auditorium. I'm getting an echo, but if it's not gonna bother you all, it's not gonna bother me. So what we did was, we went out into the community, we talked to other organizations. There's about 50 or 60 of us really that said something needed to be done, and so we all organized around stopping the relocation of City Hall to the municipal auditorium. I would like to think that we have been successful, but that is not the case. And that's the reason, one of the reasons for us gathering tonight. This, turn it up.
You need to mute the Zoom page.
Okay, so the people that we were meeting with decided that we should form a more organized coalition of all the organizations and residents and anyone who had the same concern as we did. And so that's how Save Our Soul came about. I'm trying to use the price that Natalie put up. I don't want her work to go to waste. But what we're going to ask you all to do is just what people do when they do presentations, ask that you put your phone on silent. If you need to go to the restroom, the men's is to the left, my left, the ladies are to the right. We're gonna ask that you hold your questions until after the presentation is done. I promise it's not a long presentation because we wanna get your input. Everything you say will be recorded. Everything you say will be recorded. But we encourage everyone to speak freely because it is going live on Facebook, it's on Zoom, and it's also what we're collecting the information on from the survey. Okay? Slide number 2. Only one computer audio can be on in the room. One computer audio. There's too much feedback. Is the speaker visible? Who is speaking, please? Okay. This is Cheryl Austin. I'm a founding member of the Save Our Soul Coalition. I'm also a historic Premier resident. I'm trying to get Natalie off the screen, you all, and I don't mean to be hard or anything, but this is what happens when you go tech. I grab your hand. Perhaps Facebook Live or another platform will be better for this kind of presentation. Okay, well let me just say this then. Can I just say the comments that we see from you all is on the Municipal Auditorium, Armstrong Park, the Mahalia Jackson Theater Performing Arts, and of course, Congo Square. We don't see the only entity that will be imposed upon in the Armstrong Park complex, just one, the Mahalia Jackson Theater Performing Arts. What we would like to do is help the city and help everyone else understand what needs to happen at the Armstrong Park complex is a comprehensive plan so that the threat of any developer or government agency, department, it will never happen again. Treme has been through this trauma too many times for too many years. And although over the years, each time we go through this, the community come together, they form a vision, they try to get it into the heads and the hearts, really the hearts of the politicians, because I feel like if I was just begging last week, but that's another story. And nothing happens. So at this time, right now, this moment, we really do need everyone to help us stop what has been happening in Treme for over 50 years. So we want your ideas, your vision, your thoughts about what should happen at the Municipal Auditorium. We want your ideas of what should happen, or let it remain the way it is in Congo Square, where our tradition, our heritage, our culture, and America's only original music, jazz, was created. And we also want your ideas on what can be improved upon at the Mahalia Jackson Theater Performing Arts, and of course the entire Armstrong Park. What do you see that looking like? What do you think, or how do you think Armstrong Park can be improved upon? So with that being said, Natalie, I know we had the presentation now, but is it really necessary? Now, do I need to say anything else other than we stand united against the relocation of City Hall? That's what I can say. So, I hate not to show Natalie's presentation, but I can do that without talking. Just look at her slide so that they can see. Well, at the end of it is where the questions are, so. Historic Treme neighborhood, I think you all know what Treme means to the city, what it means to the community. It's been, modified throughout the years. When I think of Treme, I think of North Rampart to Claiborne and Esplanade to Orleans, but we've had several modifications over the years. If I can get to the questions. No audio, we still don't have audio. Treme Center, Treme Community Center, Armstrong Park, what we just talked about, 32-acre park, so you can do a lot over there, especially if
Did you fill out
we
that
remove
survey?
the,
Oh, that was very good.
parking lots over
Very
there.
good.
What's the next one? Okay. It'll be better tomorrow, Natalie, don't worry about it. Don't worry. Okay, so. Can you answer the questions with the mic or without the mic? I think you may be better if you all answer the questions without the mic as being recorded. So the questions are, how accessible is the park on a scale of 1 to 10? How accessible? Anyone want to answer?
About 5, I would say,
One being,
the worst.
one being the worst.
1 being the worst, 10 being the best. 1 being the worst. That's what you said, Marcel? Marcel, go ahead. Accessible, yeah, kind of, okay,
I would say about 5.
5? Okay,
I would say about 4.
4,
I say about two. I say about two.
about 2. Anyone else want to weigh in on accessibility? 2.
I would say about 6, but the reason is sometimes those gates are open and sometimes they're not, and you never know when it seems to fluctuate when they're open and when they're closed.
That's not our agreement.
Mm.
Okay, so what amenities would you like to see in the park that are not there now? Or any amenities that are there now that you enjoy?
The children's playground would be nice, that
The
is not there
children's
now.
playground?
There's no playground.
Anyone else? Angela? Stormwater management, yes. You need to remove those parking lots and add green space. More green space so we can, 2 more hands, raise them high, cause I'm, okay.
Some of the areas are not wheelchair accessible, so ramps so that people with
Ramps.
wheelchairs.
So that they can be wheelchair accessible.
Miss
Joe?
Cheryl.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, how are you? When you have a minute, I just have a presentation that I send to all the council members and the mayor. And it's just an idea for what I believe the municipal auditorium should be used for.
Okay.
And the basis is education. And whenever you're ready.
Okay, when we get to the municipal auditorium,
Got
we
it.
can give it to the again. We're on Armstrong Park right now. Marcel,
Restrooms.
restroom. Okay. That's part of the survey. I
Amen.
understand everyone enjoyed the
Amen.
survey. This is a good survey. Okay, so what programmatic features would you like to see there? And we,
Sorry, what was the question?
programmatic, what
Oh.
type of programs, if any, would you like to see in Armstrong Park?
The concert series was nice, that they had.
The concert series, when was that? Years ago or how long ago?
Before COVID, there was Thursday Jazz in the Park.
Okay,
Thursday Jazz
okay,
in the
you're
Park.
talking
It was
about
lovely.
with-
It was always full.
We're friends of Armstrong Park.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would bounce off that. Besides, also every Sunday they have the cultural presentations with the drumming in Congress
yeah,
Square. I think they could amplify that a little bit, and also various jazz and other performances. A place for that, yeah. Mhm.
Congo Square, we're
Right.
gonna ask those same questions.
Oh, okay.
For Congo Square. Alonzo, I see you shaking your head, I know. We have a man in here right now, but.
It's Ray-Ban. Shaking my head at his Ray-Ban, but
Okay, anyone else? Programs?
So what you would like to see or what you would not like to see? Is that
No,
what-
either way.
Either way?
Yeah.
I mean, being that it's a park, if we talk about Armstrong Park area right now, right? That's supposed to be for jazz. So just living there, I'm seeing all kind of other stuff that don't have nothing to do with that. I mean, maybe that's because they get to rent out it from the city, but I see a whole bunch of different kind of parades and events that don't have nothing to do with jazz or black culture in general there. And so I just would like to see it more focused on what the purpose was supposed to be in the first place, which was roots of music, black roots of music, you know, Congo Square, jazz, and not all of this other stuff that kind of takes away from the mission.
Okay, so can you name a few of those?
I mean, it's a whole bunch.
Just give me three, just so we'll know what.
Well, Red Dress Run,
Yeah.
Barkus, I mean, there was some other stuff too, but it was a little more outlandish. But it's just a whole bunch of stuff that don't have nothing to do with black culture in general, and if that's supposed to be a sacred space that we got the rest of the city for all that other stuff. So, you know.
Well taken. Anyone else in the park?
No, it may not necessarily be the park, but.
Can we stick to the park right now? No, we have the park. I'm trying, the park.
I can't, I mean, it's inclusive of the park,
Okay.
and I just want to emphasize control. I think the number one thing that the African American community needs to work on very seriously is control, and that's control of the whole area, not just one aspect. I think that's vitally important. Economics. Already, I think the park comes under the United Park Service, if I'm not mistaken. Huh?
They abandoned us.
They did? Okay, well, you know, whatever. But I think that this area here, holistically, is an economic melting pot, you know. We have the auditorium at Armstrong Park. Someone had mentioned something about developing a museum, African American museum. I mean, you have to look, to me, my opinion now, again, is you look at the whole area. Deal with an attorney, develop a board or commission. They do that with Audubon Park, City Park. The problem is that the people who control that don't even live in the city. But they come and they control our city. Look at the downtown development district. You know, that you have your city council, but the downtown development district control all the activities in Canal Street, downtown area. I don't mean to get off, but I just got to, really got to look at this. If you control this area, you know, and look at not it separately, but holistically, that's the number one thing. Control the area, develop a board or commission, get your city council hookups down on there, on board with that, get you an attorney, develop that, and just follow the pattern how the other folks do it and have done it historically. And it's a shame that they have been doing it and we don't control nothing.
Well, here we are tonight.
And here we are today, and you're
Here we
absolutely
are
correct.
tonight.
I said, get me started.
I know.
Here we are today, and it's no excuse. We shouldn't be planning to give this to somebody else, this idea. This is our idea. This is your idea, Settler. This is your idea, you know. And we have to control that, number one, and say, this is us, this is what we want. Develop what we want, and you tell them, this is what we want. You know, you don't ask them, you don't crawl to nobody. You're in a power position here in which we control this area.
Yes.
And we're gonna show them that we want this area, we want the resources already committed to this area. And you do research, they probably have a lot more than that $38 million or whatever.
We gonna
that comes
put
to
you
this
on
area.
a committee.
They're
You
probably,
can research.
they voting like they do.
No, he,
You
no,
know,
I
but
know
the bottom
Randolph.
line is control, and you tell them we want to control, this is our destiny, this is our history, and we don't want nothing, it's non-negotiable, we don't want nothing else. And then the economics is already there, and the economics to the floor, and you develop,
so
you
that's
this
kinda
develop
like-
like this, and blase,
But
blase,
Randolph, that's kind of like what we have been saying, we in the community
Okay.
saying for years. I'm just saying, I don't want to interject what we've been saying, but it's basically what you're saying, control.
Okay.
And each time the table is built, we are not asked to come to the table. So that's why we're in the streets, we're marching, we're getting.
You own the table. We
Oh, well,
control the table,
well,
we just haven't realized
well,
that yet. We control the
No,
table.
no, we realize.
We realize that
We
we control the
realize
table.
that
We gotta just
City
see,
Hall
just deal with it.
saying they should be relocated to the municipal
Well, you know,
church.
that's
But I don't want, okay.
Okay.
So Randolph is a former City Hall employee. And, he know a lot. He know where everything is. And we really would like to have him become a part of SOS. I told you that on Saturday. So that's why he's passionate. He know what Treme has been going through over the last 50 years. And so do I. So does my husband and a lot of other people here. Okay, so the next question.
Well,
Anyone else? Go ahead, Anand.
just to add to what he's saying, he has an excellent point of having control, having special tax districts, having money.
Correct.
As I understand, that is gonna be asked of this group, put on the table. And one way to put money on the table is to create a commission.
There you go.
Have a special tax district where there's money every year that's collected for the sole purpose of the park maintenance, use of the auditorium and things of that nature. He's 100% on point with that.
Oh, we know. And that'll be revealed at another time, but we know all too well, Alonzo.
Cheryl?
And
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
Go
off,
ahead.
but I just want to bring, if you look at Lincoln Center in New York City, it's very similar to what we have here. When they built that, they had multiple complexes and they had a lot of land. And the multiple complexes worked in synergy with one another to draw tourists, to draw revenue, to do fundraising. So I agree, it's a great opportunity. I'm just curious, is the land itself in some sort of a historic trust, or is there any way to put pressure on the establishment to set aside this property for the community so that it's, number one, you maintain it as it is so that no one else can get control over it. You also have a physical geographic area that you're now identifying as an area for specific activities. And it will allow you to then draw the tourists, because, you know, tourists are coming to, one of the issues that I'm dealing with the organization that I'm working with is the fact that your traditional street musicians who used to have free run of Jackson Square are now in competition with a lot of people who are not even playing traditional New Orleans jazz. And yet people come to the city because they want to hear that. And so there's a lot of competition down there, and many of these musicians are elderly, so they're not in a position even to deal with a lot of these young kids who come in and playing whatever and doing whatever that's not even part of the tradition. And there's a desire to protect that tradition and protect these individuals by putting them in a central location which can be identified for tourists, for dollars, for any kind of funding. But the first step though is to get the land and get it secured. And I'm just curious as to what is there any sort of historic designation on that property?
I'm asking questions. I want your input. There's a lot that I can say because I have been working in Treme for years and years, and I can honestly admit some things we did neglect when we had the opportunity, or we should have banged on the door harder. We took the road, as the congressman now says, of least resistance, because we wanted to be nice. And that's just the bottom line. We thought that sitting at a table, talking to our elected officials and saying, oh, well, you know, this is what we would like to see in Tremby. We can create our own economic, see, I'm going on. Anyone else? Anyone else?
Yes, ma'am, I'm concerned. How is the information be passed on? Will it be passed on to Cantrell administration, the input that comes from here?
Well,
I'm
hopefully,
sorry to walk in, I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. Hopefully she's watching so she can get it live. But yes,
I'm
the
sorry,
information.
there won't be no transition When
Well,
you
I'm
put this in our
trying-
hand,
I'm
or anybody
trying
from
to-
City Hall.
But I'm trying to answer you. Are you the
I think you have, I think
gentleman?
you have, I think you have.
Are you the gentleman that called me on yesterday?
Yeah, that's the one that don't like Smith.
Okay, see you. Anyone else? Well, the information will be passed on as it's going live now, but after we collect the information from Zoom, the survey, and yes, the live streaming, we're gonna analyze it and we're going to present it to you all once again and to the mayor, our city council person, and anyone else that wanna have access to it. That's why we're here. We didn't know what all we wanted to do other than let people know that this is not over with. Treme does not need to be threatened again, ever again, with developers or any governmental entity saying they want to relocate, not just over at Armstrong Park, but on Basin Street. We don't want to see this anymore. Our community is not what it used to be. And I don't want to go off on it. I want to show a fair process in where we have invited people to give their input so that we can demonstrate to the mayor, to our elected officials, both local, state, and federal elected officials, that we are serious. We don't want this to happen again. So that's why we asked you to come out here on this hot summer night to give us the information. Tell us what it is. Tell them what it is. We had an idea. We've been having ideas for years, sitting on the stoops, telling our story. I grew up in this culture, but I don't want to put that out there. They didn't listen to me when I sent it in writing. Otherwise, our community will not be, threatened with short-term rentals right now. But that's a whole nother story. And I'm not here to talk about what I want, what Asata want. Joan, not what you want. But we want input. We want to see how far apart what our community vision is from city residents or city businesses. I say it's not that far apart. Marcel?
Okay. You're still on programmatic features, right?
I'm on programmatic.
All right. Well, I'll just use that time to I just want to throw something out there. The municipal auditorium was basically built.
This is the park we're talking about.
Oh, we talk about the park.
Yeah.
Not
Let me
the,
get through
so
these
you
questions.
basically got them all separate.
Yeah, we have
okay,
it separated.
So this is just the
I'm
park.
sorry if I
Okay,
didn't
okay.
fully explain
All right,
that.
no.
This is my first
Okay, so I'm
time
finished
doing
with
it,
that.
and I'm trying to be as fair and relaxed and chill and cool and all of that, but I'm not really feeling it right now. Y'all gonna help me get through this, so.
I really like what Ms. Ann was saying about street musicians in the park. I think that would be a really great programmatic feature to see in the park.
Okay. Anyone else before I go to question number 4? Okay. My favorite subject. What income generating opportunities would you propose? Angela? Concession.
Concession. So during those Thursday in the parks,
Thursdays in the park.
there was, I think there was an organization that was funding, I think it was half the city and half maybe the Jazz and Heritage Foundation or some, but I'm not sure exactly who was funding but there were donations asked at the entrance and also lots of concessions and vendors were present during those events, so that was, a visit.
You wanna speak on that, Alonzo?
Just saying we had that and it was working, so.
Festival, concessions. Now donations I need to speak about, because years and years and years ago, the agreement was made that the park would always be free and accessible.
Even if
That
there's
you
a musical event?
cannot charge to enter
Oh,
Armstrong
no, they were
Park.
voluntary.
So, right, it was all donations, but you're still paying to go in there. We wouldn't want to see that.
To add on to what you just said, the Jazz Heritage Foundation, by charters, they are required to give things back to the community. They are a nonprofit. As a result of that, this is what we dealt with them 20, 30 years ago when we put forth a project called Coin Due in the Jazz and Heritage Festival, because they were negligent in terms of putting back in the community. So therefore, yeah, that's why they had that jazzing in the park. That came directly from my understanding from that foundation or the Jazz Fest itself. So they have a mandate, so that can continue, and it's required that it should continue, and it can continue through them to make that a reality in the park. So that is something that exists today from my understanding.
I mean, it was successful. I attended every
Correct,
single one.
So anyone else, wait, let me get the lady in the back.
I've always wondered what if there's a plan for what I think would be old jazz museum, and there's other abandoned buildings there, things like that could be a restaurant or something.
Okay, I can't really understand.
Yeah, I think it's the old jazz museum.
The old jazz museum.
That could be a restaurant or concession.
Where is that? Where is the old jazz museum? Where is
In the park, there's the other old.
The old WOZ building.
Oh, the WWZ building, yeah.
Perseverance Hall.
So was there talk about maybe OZ coming back to the park? Is that what I
Well, we're not
understood?
gonna talk about what they're talking about. I wanna talk about what you want to see there. Your ideas, your visions, your thoughts. So what are you saying? You think that would be a great idea for the?
Concessions, like restaurant or concessions in that building, is something that I was
Okay, more utilization of the buildings that exist now in Armstrong Park, other than the Mahalia Jackson, or are you including that?
Because they're cool buildings, but it's just a shame that they're sitting there, you know, to kind of skirt around and not even be able to use for anything.
I agree. Anyone else?
I would love to see some sort of masking workshops or eating workshops. There's an organization that does a trad jazz workshop. I saw them on Facebook. They had 75 to 100. They do this every year. And they had 75 to 100 out-of-town guests who came in to take classes to learn how to play traditional New Orleans jazz. They had an arrangement with the hotels. They had an arrangement with the restaurants. It's a very well organized organization, and no people of color. It shows you how popular this culture is to the rest of the world. And I think that would be a great way to not only work with your social aid and pleasure club, because everybody wants to know how to make a mask. Everybody wants to know how to make an Indian outfit. Everybody wants to know how to dance in the second line. So let's teach them and charge them. And you got the facilities in the old OZ buildings. You got the buildings already there.
Anyone else? Yes, Elena?
Leilon.
Leland.
When I travel, I like to go to different cultures to get, items from that culture. And so when my friends come in town, they typically wait until Jazz Fest to come and see Congress Square and these items at Jazz Fest. So then when I come in town now, there's a lot of items that I don't know where to send them. And it would be awesome if everything at that Congress Square and Jazz Fest, if we have those set up here with the cultural, all of the clothing and the instruments and masks, and I love the Indian ideas, where you come here in one spot, you get everything from the culture from Congress Square.
So that's kind of like a cultural complex,
Yeah.
incubators type.
It's like Williamstown or Williamsburg or whatever they call it.
Okay, let me, this is our first question.
Well, I don't have a question, but I hear a lot of commercialization. You're talking about restaurants, you're talking about gift shopping. And I thought the purpose of this was to protect what we already have. This is a sacred space. And so I think that it's a responsibility because it is a sacred space. This is a cultural, racial issue and needs to be protected. And so in my reimagining how this could be protected and funded, I think that our congressmen, or our several congress folks that we have an opportunity, a unique opportunity with this presidential administration to tap into some of the resources that they're offering for impact the preservation of parks and reconnecting communities. And so I think it's just about the way that you frame this. You know, this could be a reconnection to all communities, especially within the Black community in Tremaine. And when I say that, I think about the banning of all live music in Tremaine, which pushed a lot of musicians out. I think about the amount of short-term rentals that they have just within this small area. And I think the goal should not be to commercialize, but to protect. And I think it's time to call on them, to call on the presidential administration, not the local administration, but the national federal administration to help come in and lend a hand with this issue. And I think it's gonna take, you know, once we see what this new election cycle does, it's gonna take really leaning on those elected officials that we see come in. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't wanna see shops. I don't wanna see, you know, restaurants. That's not the space for that.
But for our purposes tonight, we're taking it all in.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just giving
Okay,
you
one more.
Okay, so, during COVID, we lost two very important elders, Mr. Ronald Lewis of the Big Nine Social Aid and Pleasure Club, and Mr. Sylvester from the Backstreet Museum. So we now have two very, very important repository of the Treme culture and the masking Indian culture and the second line culture, which are the House of Dance and Feathers in my neighborhood in the Lower Nine, and the Backstreet Museum. And nobody's doing anything with either of those places, or at least not with the House of Dance and Feather. I'm not as aware of what, if anything, is being done with the Backstreet Museum. What
So your suggestion is, or ideas that
would be to
their
bring the
collection
incredible
be located
collections of
somewhere
both of
in-
those museums into the buildings.
Okay,
Into
thank you.
Armstrong
And
Park. That's a good idea.
Okay, I'm trying to get it all
Great
in.
idea.
But you all know that you can go to the, New Orleans Cultural Preservation Committee Facebook page, or the survey, you can leave your comments there. And of course on Zoom tomorrow, if you all need to come back tomorrow, if there's something that I'm missing on any particular item. Okay, so how do you currently use Congo Square in Armstrong Park? Anyone, do you, kind of, sort of?
I go to the drum circle.
You go to the concerts over there? Marcel?
I lead 4 days a week. I lead experiences that start there and go back to my house. So
When you say experiences, what do you mean?
Experience is basically it's like what a tour would be.
Okay.
But it's more deeper than a tour. Okay. I'm not a tour guide. I'm an artist and, you know, a generation descendant of the city. So I just talk about the history of my family for the last 300 years, significant Congo Square, Black masking traditions, and my own artwork and post-Katrina legacy of my art. But I started Congo Square. So I'm in Congo Square at least 2 hours a day, 4 days a week. And so that's why I said the thing about the bathrooms, because everybody asks me, is it where to pee?
Okay.
You know? But, and now I see, you know, a whole bunch of the commercial tours are now starting to start there. They used to start from Jackson Square. Now the center of gravity is, because of gentrification, is moving to Congo Square, where we always been doing our thing on the outside of the purview of the permits. Because you have to have permits to do all the stuff in the tourist track.
I'm a
right?
licensed tour guide, so yes,
Yeah,
I
so
understand.
yeah, I used to have a license too to do all that, but the thing about Congo Square that's beautiful is it's out there. It used to be outside of the purview of permits. And it's good to keep it deep commercialized. It has to be a safe space outside of market forces. Because gentrification is always kind of led by quote unquote these mysterious market forces.
Well, that's
that look like white people in real life. Right?
Let me-
So
I'm holding.
So
I'm holding.
So yeah, so part of the use of the Congo Square kind of ties into the keeping it decommercialized, keeping it about our story, and I'll stop there.
Okay. Let me get Alonzo, then the lady. I know your name, but I can't think of it. and then Prince. No, Alonzo. Go ahead, Alonzo.
Yeah.
And anyone else, can you just raise your hand? Like I said, I'm trying to be cool up here, but it's hot up in here. I'm trying to be cool and I'm trying to be relaxed. No, I have some water. I just don't want to start. Go ahead, Alonzo.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with the last two comments about the over commercialization, but I more agree with the man over here about establishing a commission that will have control of the amount of commercializing that goes on in that space. My concern is I can't think of any place in the world where there's a sacred space. Even when you go to Vatican, that's a sacred space, but they control how many visitors, how much they charge to walk on those Vatican grounds. You can go to the Colosseum in Rome, sacred space, same thing. And my concern is when we get to the point of saying we don't want to commercialize, the issue is we haven't been commercialized.
Exactly.
We don't have any funding to do anything
Exactly.
with. We rely on government. It changes from administration to administration. Budgets get cut, and you're in the situation that you're in right now. But if you have a commission where you have a millage every year that goes into that, you have a sustainable level of funding already. And if you have that commission, you have the level of control on how much commercializing will take place. And if you have that control, everything that we're saying, we're going to be in this spot 5, 4, 10, 15 years again, wondering where we're going to get funding to sustain whatever we're talking about.
Let me let her answer. Say, and then Prince, and then I'll come back to you. Just so you thought. Yes, you forgot, right?
What I was going to say was difference is like the Congo Square space with the trees is a place of worship. I actually go to Congo Square because I have a relationship with that tree that is personal. I'm sure Ty has plenty to say more about this, and it's a sacred space for 3 living religions, and just that it should have protection just because of that. I mean, I don't see the mayor trying to use City Hall in San Augustine Church. That would be
So,
helpful.
is that how you use Congo Square? You go there so that you can sit and be under the tree?
The tree is a sacred place to me.
It's a sacred place where the tree is
And to many
located.
others that I know.
Okay. Prince?
I agree. For me, it's a sanctuary. It's my church. Whether Luther and Jamila are out there or not, whether Preservation Society is out there or not, many of us, I'm sure many others in here use that as a part of our spiritual environment. So I'm already uncomfortable with not just an idea of commercialization, but also the tourists have to have some degree of controls. I don't want to see it turn into a dog park. I've gotten into literal aggressive encounters with tourists who feel it's okay on Sunday morning to bring their dogs to that tree and use it like a toilet. When we going to be out there in an hour or 2 hours, barefoot, before our ancestors. So I'm already a bit touchy about over-commercialization, even over active tourism. It is our culture. I have a problem when I see a group of white people making voodoo dolls in Congo Square at the tree in complete, denial of our sacred space. For me, that's a problem. So I like to keep it the way it is. I like it quiet. I do think we, as Marcel said, have an economy, but it's not necessarily above table, and it's not necessarily being recognized. I know I bring a lot of tourists to that space. I'm sure he does. We bring a lot of tourists to this city. And so I think in terms of even that value of the space is overlooked by other areas, the French Quarter, the Garden District. It's overlooked, and it's undervalued in terms of the number of tourists that want to come there outside of traditional tourism, who want a more grassroots, down-to-earth exploration of our culture and our community.
So, Randolph, let me just say this. So, I understand everything you're saying, but I think what I want to point out is there a missing educational component around Congo Square and really the entire Armstrong Park complex, because many of us who grew up and lived through the destruction, we don't talk about the destruction or that history. So more education needs to be a part of or included into the plan.
Yeah.
And,
I just want to say, I want to sound repetitive, but maybe I will say some things that might be repetitive. But the brother right here, this brother here, him, and everybody here, the ideas that everyone has put forward is what I see as self-sufficiency, but I look at the whole area. The board, the commission, my brother, I think that that is right now the best way to go and identify, as somebody said here, your territory, what you want to control. And I think that when you deal with the Harry Jackson building, when you deal with the sacred space, when you deal with, what's that, Mars Jeff, I believe, all of that is in the area. And when you look at that area, that is, when you realistically look at it, that could be the most economically self-sufficient area. And everybody knows what self-sufficient means. You don't need monies from the government. It generates its own funds with entertainment, with tours. I mean, everything with limited commercial that's respectful. You know, everything everybody said here can be encompassed in that whole area. Don't look at just one area. I beg you, don't do that. You should look at the whole area, okay? All of the buildings, you know, because you're making a mistake. You're making a mistake. You're making a mistake if you're just looking at the sacred area. But that's the fight, though. I mean, you can't take away the sacred area, bro. There's no way in the world. But the whole area is sacred, you know, and utilize the whole area and demand. This is our area, historically, culturally, racially. This is our area. This has been our area. It has a history to that. And you demand the whole area. Get your board, get your planners, get a lawyer, and hook that stuff up.
That's what
it.
we're gonna
Okay,
do. We still on one topic,
We just took it all.
Okay, so you just took it all in, right? So would you like to see the fountains operational again?
Yes.
Do you all know that there are fountains over
Yes.
there around in Congo Square?
Yes.
So I guess we can do a show of hands, or if anyone want to speak to that.
I like that idea, yeah.
You like it, so that's one.
Yeah.
I think that's everyone in here. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 20, 21. My mom used to go underneath the fountain, so yes. Okay, Miss Manny. I'm finally off slide number 1 question. Let's go to the next one. All right, y'all, I'm burning up here. I need one of those second line fans right about now. Y'all have one? Look, I'm not used to speaking in public, and most of you all in here, y'all know me. Okay, so, no, this still, oh, she's working on, she's on into that and let her, okay.
While that's happening, I would like to answer this gentleman's question about, is the park protected? The Congo Square section is on the National Historical Registry. However, the mistake that happened was that they only registered that little parcel right there. When in actuality, the whole park sits on Congo Square, right? So there are plans to make it a UNESCO site as well, to kind of add another layer of protection to the space.
Do you know what the timeline is on that?
Pardon me?
You know what the timeline?
No, because somebody else is working on it for us. So, the UNESCO site of memory. In Louisiana, believe it or not, there's only one spot on the UNESCO site of memory, and that's the point. Yeah, that's it. In all of Louisiana, there's only one spot. Poverty Point.
Can I be honest, you didn't do a run-through. This is our run-through for tomorrow, I'm sorry, you all.
We just go to the second one.
Next slide.
So the second, yeah, the second one would be, we did okay, yeah, let's do the municipal auditorium.
They really attach it all together.
Sure.
Right, everyone is, but specifically, we would like to know what you all would like to see at the municipal auditorium. You knew what it once was, art, music, dance.
Entertainment center.
Entertainment center.
Absolutely.
Sports also, in poetry.
Yeah.
You don't wanna leave that out. So
Concerts.
concerts, definitely jazz,
You'll
round.
remain just like that. Oh, yeah. That's when you can.
Yeah, I agree.
And I graduated
That's
from
right,
there.
that's right. High school.
So let's just get some input on that.
That's economic development right there.
Go
101.
Prince.
Well, I want to first publicly agree with Marcel that if it ends up getting torn down, I'd be happy with it being returned to green space.
So that's a vision, that's a thought, that's an idea. Okay, who's next? Let me get her and then I'll go to you myself.
The green space is definitely on the table. If it's rebuilt, I think it should be a cultural center of the Afro-Caribbean diaspora in New Orleans. And it would be, it could have a museum and a library to contain the collections of those two museums that I mentioned, and an educational component so that it could be a live, space where it's not just a museum with things behind glass, but where people would actually, young people would be actually trained in the arts that are being exposed, and some form of performance as well. But mostly about Afro-Caribbean culture in response to the situation in New Orleans.
Unless somebody else wanna go first, because we all up here dominating the conversation.
Okay, the lady
We
in
need
the
to hear
back.
some other voices. I wanna say something though.
Okay, I'm not gonna leave you out. We're on a municipal auditorium now, so this is.
But I'll let
the
somebody else
building.
go first, then I'll go.
Okay, so kind of.
Yes, I think that it should be a civil rights museum.
A civil rights
Yes,
museum.
I understand that the Culture, Recreation, and Tourism Department, which is under the state governor's office, that there's been, a project slated on the books at least for the Civil Rights Museum for maybe the last couple of decades.
Whoa.
And so, the Civil Rights Museum is supposed to go in New Orleans at some point. So there could be a possibility, I'm thinking that could be in concert with the state, the state governor's office, the Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. I also believe that this civil rights history has to be inclusive. It cannot be just the history of New Orleans, because Louisiana as a whole, it would be a Louisiana Civil Rights Museum. Civil rights started here with the Baton Rouge Plus boycott in 1953, which was the precursor to 1955 Montgomery Plus boycott. But for some reason, the way that our history is told on a national scale, it's always said that it started with Montgomery, which is not true, because it started here.
Started here.
So I am the daughter of John Garner, who was involved in these Baton Rouge sit-ins in 1960s. And there was a case called Garner versus Louisiana. So this is something that I've advocated on over the course of years. Been speaking with the state already regarding the Civil Rights Trail that was just launched just recently. So I certainly believe this would be an appropriate space considering the history of Congress Square itself. And on a personal note, just out of transparency, since I'm originally born in Baton Rouge, and that's where my family is, and that's where the civil rights movement started in the state. And if I had my way, I would say Baton Rouge.
We're not talking about Baton
I
Rouge
understand.
now.
I'm being transparent. I understand that the tourist dollars are going to dominate.
I know,
That
but-
it comes to New Orleans, even if that's not the best historically correct place. So considering that, if it has to come to New Orleans, then I am advocating that it go to municipal auditorium.
Let me
But
just.
I also will advocate that Baton Rouge is where this thing started with the
We're not talking about Baton Rouge, but I get to know, we spoke on yesterday, but what you would like to see at the municipal auditorium is a civil rights museum, along with the Backstreet Culture Museum, and what's the federal?
The House of Dance and
The
Feathers.
House of Dance and Feathers. And I'm just
think
gonna
they'd be
throw
open
in
to moving
the
it?
tornado people.
Would love for somebody else.
Okay, I
a
have
good
to,
idea,
I have
yeah.
to go with Jackie, okay, because, my boss. Okay, Jackie.
All right,
how you
so
doing?
I want to say that, I think it's most important that we have things in the auditorium that, generate income. And there are a lot of things that the city does not have. But, for instance, we talked about, restoring the auditorium to its past use. That would be the best thing to do. Because number one, there are, other venues almost that support that same number of individuals. And so we have to look at what we don't have. And what we don't have are small venues that community organizations can go and have their concerts and their shows. So I would suggest that we look at, instead of going back to the 4,500 seated venue, we look at smaller venues. And as I mentioned, we look at things like a supper club, maybe some commercial, stores and, in there, because in addition to getting, tax dollars, we also have to generate income. For instance, the Audubon Institute, well, they get a large, allocation from the state and probably from the city, but they also generating income, so we have to do that as well.
Thank you, Jackie. Okay, so Marcel, and then you, and you're on a municipal auditorium, so I'm going to give your comments to, and then Natalie.
So cool.
Okay.
So that was my original thing. The municipal auditorium. Just the, whatever the use is, right? I just want to just reiterate that it should be about the preservation, the advancement, and the presentation of New Orleans Black culture. And I just want to reiterate, whatever's in the auditorium, it should be about Black culture. I wouldn't want it to kind of go back to being like Rex balls and the King of the Elf balls, and you know, that's what it really was originally built for, the white people to do their segregated Mardi Gras balls, and for Al Jolson to do his blackface performances in 1930 with 4,500 segregationists watching him, and you know, so it was really, the building was built to be a tool for white supremacy.
Correct.
They tore down the black neighborhood and built a white supremacist building.
Right.
And we fighting for it, I guess, because now everybody got 5 or 6 more generations of history after the original racist intent of the building. But we just got to keep in mind that for the future of it, we should put some kind of protections in place. And that protection has to be strong language about what we want, whatever it to be, to fall under. And I just always want to just keep reiterating protection, presentation, advancing of Black culture, whatever it is.
Yeah, is that correct? Jackie, excellent, and brother here with everybody.
Yeah.
And we are talking about the municipal auditorium in terms of being, you know, basically a money generating place without taking away its historical relevancy and significance. And when the matter of the Black Museum, African American Museum is being thrown out, there's land space here, I believe. I don't know how large you want it, but you can, or we can consider building a museum. It'll still be attractive. We have that's a lot of space. You don't have to harm anything. Sacred space, nobody touching that at all. But you have space there that could be converted, and a building, a museum can be built. You know, it don't have to be a monstrosity museum, but it's something that will bring more value to this whole area. I'm still looking at the whole area, you know, and it'll bring tourists, international. We have, believe it or not, we have international connections in here too. We're talking about Africa, is what I'm saying. Okay? And I'm not just looking at, you know, I'm looking at a world. I'm connected with the world here. We have to look at it from a world perspective, not just but it's key and important, but it's basically connected. We're talking about Haiti, We talking about, Ghana, Kenya, we talking about all of those
the world.
places. We talking about the
Randolph,
world.
you know, I don't mean to cut you off, but I
think we
haven't
gotta do that,
seen
but
John
yeah, go
in
ahead.
years, so
I'm just,
John wanna talk.
throw that in your head.
I get it, and I'm just really trying to be respectful to everyone, give everyone a chance, because as I said earlier, we want your ideas, your thoughts, your vision, so that it can be presented.
Correct.
So John, how you doing, John?
I'm excellent, how about you?
I'm up here, John, after all these
I know,
years.
I
What
know.
happened?
Well, as you know, I really love Tremaine, and I think every idea that everyone has discussed can be implemented in my idea here. First of all, the auditorium is architecturally a fabulous building. I'm sorry to say that the interior design really has very little to offer, except an idea that I'm gonna present. And the idea is this: first of all, most people are visual. And so we're talking about tourists come to New Orleans because we have different and we have exciting to offer. Different is really important. They learn history, they learn culture. They line up at the aquarium, the IMAX, and all of the museums. The municipal auditorium can offer easy access, education, and a unique presentation. The existing building can offer a major tourist attraction with location, the dome ceiling in the inside, the seating arrangement, and the opportunity for major profit. What if you could see the history and sequence of the world from the inside? When you have a globe, the globe, as every child is educated on the exterior of a globe. And of course, what I want you to think about is, what if 98% of the people do not understand the sequence of history, paleontology, Egypt, America, and all the simultaneous things that are happening? So let's think about, first of all, we have the technology to design an incredible screen. The Japanese have something. There is an entity called Maparium, which is in Boston, and it's an incredible, complete dome. But what again is it? It's the outside of the globe. And being that I was an educator for years, I know that really importantly, it will be to have kids understand history, geography, everything on an easier presentation that is more visual. So supposing you're sitting in this domed, expansive screen, and you're on the inside of the globe, how many people really understand what was happening in this part of the world and what was simultaneously happening in that part of the world? And you can do that in today's technology. More than that, I guess what I'd like to ask, when Louisiana was discovered, what was happening at the same time in China, in Europe, and, what was going on with the gold rush in California? But let's talk about the African American history. Again, every screen.
That's what I'm
sorry.
I just want.
The screen can absolutely give the history, with the technology we have today of computers and whatever, from the history that the lady was explaining, as well as any other aspect of history, but chronologically. And an easy presentation for folks to understand, and it would be so visual if you had a screen like that.
We can put that.
Well, I'd like to settle off, or if you can see, this is the Maparium in Boston. But again, it's the outside of the globe. And I think kids are not taught properly the education of chronology.
Well, I'm gonna say, I think that's a great concept. I think it's something that, is being recorded, so your idea of what can happen over there will be part of the record in analyzing, what the people say.
Exactly.
You wanna give it to me, or
I'm
you
gonna
wanna?
read this with you, absolutely.
Okay, and so, the lady in the black in the back, okay.
that may be a little bit more detail than what you were looking for, but I wanna back up some of what you were saying. The African American Museum in DC, the way it's laid out, when I finally got a chance to go, chronologically and geologically, it's phenomenal in its learning feature. And so I think that might be a little bit of what she's touching on, but that's, I think that's a fantastic.
Is that your vision also?
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Not necessarily the screen, but that, everything, you know, the
That's
chronological.
about American music in Nashville is the same way.
Great.
This is great, Cheryl. I want to thank you. I've got to run, but I just want to ask one request, and I'm more than willing to help you with this. We're renovating the facility on the corner of Playboy and Esplanade. There's North Grand Park Center. There's the African American Museum. There's the Petite Museum. Can we get all of these cultural organizations together so that we can make sure we're not duplicating one another? Because one of the first things that they're going to say to stop us is we already have that. And so there needs to be synergy amongst the organizations that are already here so that we can say, yeah, we have, it may seem like it's duplication, but like someone was saying, you need small spaces, you need mid-sized spaces, you need larger spaces because there are multiple needs within the community. And so I hate to run, but I will offer, if you want, I will offer to bring everybody together who are heading these cultural organizations, social aid and pleasure clubs, so that we can all, as leadership, talk about what we're going to have in our facilities and how they can work together. I signed in, so you got my, I would say that as a principal.
She just wanna make sure she's in New York. Alonzo?
Again, not to be redundant about anything, but, and anybody could correct me, my understanding from what I read on the internet and people I talk to is the challenge is to now push on the community what to do with this whole space. Because the idea that City Hall has.
I hate to interrupt, but can I just say citywide?
Citywide.
Because our community is kind of.
Citywide.
Okay, so
Sure.
we need citywide.
Sure, absolutely.
Participation in that.
Thank you. So having said that, it seems to me the challenge is how you're going to pay for it. More than the visions, the ideas, because we could talk about that forever. So, as it was noted, the Civil Rights Museum has funding already from the state. And my understanding is that's anywhere from 12, 14, $20 million. I don't know the exact number, but it's in the tens of millions. And that Civil Rights Museum has a board or a commission that's looking for a space. We know we have $38 million just to do the building. We know that if we organize and create a commission, and a commission can generate millage, we then therefore can write for grants at the federal level and receive funding. So if you're looking at this from a funding level, because I believe some people in this city government is challenging some of us here to come up with how you're going to do this funding. And now that we're accepting that, these are the things, at least in my mind, that we should be trying to piece together in terms of numbers and dollars and say, this is the funding line. And with the funding line, now we have all the ideas on the table and how we can put some of those ideas in place. But in my mind, the bigger challenge is how you're going to pay for some of this, where you're going to get some of the funding from. And if you identify that ahead of all these great ideas that we're talking about, the ideas then therefore can be implemented. Once we identify it, not say this is going to be exact, but we identify those pots of money that are under our control as a body, as a commission, and then we now therefore take those line items and put forth all the different ideas within that.
Tonight, we come up with a vision. I think we all are old enough in here to understand a vision without resources or funding is just a vision. We're not there. We have a vision and we have had some information on where we can receive funding, and we've been offered grant writers to help us. This challenge is real. We do not want the threat of City Hall, a developer, or anyone else going over there saying what they're going to do without our input, without our say-so, without our involvement. So that's, and I want to keep saying that because that's how many times the government and developers have come into Treme and saying what they want without our voices being heard. So Natalie wanted to say something, although she's working also, but she has a vision. I'm trying to get on Facebook. Hey, y'all. Okay.
I'm gonna defer to the one. Y'all have so
Let me-
eloquently said what
Let
I
me
was
add on
saying.
to what he said.
Well, you know, I could say something about the commission, but can we
No,
just
I wanna add on to what he said.
add? 2+2.
Economic development, that's
Yes.
what the brother was saying. My being a former city employee for about 30 or some odd years, there's funding. You know, the problem that we have in the black community is that we have gatekeepers that deny us funding really that's allocated to us. I was involved in community development, and all of the federal dollars, community development dollars that came to the city of New Orleans, came to the city of New Orleans on the backs of black folks. Because the city had to inform HUD of our poverty level here. And through the statistics of the poverty level that existed in New Orleans is how we simply got allocated the monies. It's based on poor people, and in our instances, we were 60-70% black city. It's based on black people, is how the city got the federal dollars. The problem was, your gatekeepers, when it came here, it was reallocated to going elsewhere. Look at one more thing.
Brando, but I don't want you getting me into any trouble talking about that because
Oh, no, it's
I'm a
reality.
farmer.
We're going back to economics.
I know.
You blame me.
No, I'm not blaming. Well,
Okay, I mean, not for the problem, but in terms of the idea, you know.
Is that called poverty?
Right.
Is that called poverty?
No.
but you know what? We can, yes, and we can say that, but what we are trying to present are real viable ideas with a mission to go find the funding that we need. Now, if you can help us with that, locating that, with the information you have. Well, we know there are people in there. They may have one or two of them in the room, but that's okay. We coming for the money. We asked for the money last week. We coming, we need resources. And it's for a good cause, not just for Treme, but for all of the city of New Orleans, even the state. Okay, all right. One last vision for you, because you hadn't handed.
I know I had.
What?
Another vision I had was the development of a supper club that could be in the municipal auditorium. The city doesn't have that. If you guys can remember the Roosevelt and the Hyatt, there was a national jazz artist used to come to town and would go there. There is no place locally in a cocktail in the supper club environment that can host a major artist. And I think that there's space in the municipal auditorium for that. There's parking, and and that could be an additional component in the auditorium.
Has there been any thought of having the Office of Cultural Economy
That's a thought.
in the building? That
Put it
would
out
come
there.
as like a compromise with the city, say if you want to have a piece of the city.
We asked them to identify some funding to help us meet this 90-day deadline. And this is the problem that I had, that no one, although there was 3 funding entities in the meeting last Tuesday, not one of those entities stepped up and said, well, we're willing to work with you all. We'll talk to the mayor first. She was right there and said, well, what can we do to help? So, it would be nice if they would partner with the SOS Coalition and show some good faith. but I think it's gonna be based on what you all say
Correct.
and how that's presented.
Correct.
So that's where we are. Mary, you still don't want to say anything? So we're going to move off. Anything else for the municipal auditorium? You all don't want to see a city hall there, or maybe a little bitty city hall, or maybe just a culture economy?
What's that?
Okay. No city hall, all right, no city hall.
I just want to say the city hall is too corrupt, and it's historically been too corrupt for it to occupy sacred space.
I think Randolph has said that. All right, so the last one we're going to do, and we good on time, you all, is Congo Square. So I know you all have mixed it all together, that's fine, that's dandy, that's the way I talk anyway. So if you wanna say anything specific you would like to see in Congo Square, in Osaka, well, you could probably talk to this more than I about really how large Congo Square is, because even Natalie thought it was just that little square right there. So I'm gonna ask Osaka to stop. You don't have to stop recording, but just to speak to that so people can get a better idea of what Congo Square really looks like over there.
Well, I think most everybody here knows about Congo Square, what it stands for, what it was. I would like to see the narrative change on Congo Square. Right now, they just keep talking about what Africans dance. That's all they talk about. More than dancing happened in Congo Square.
That's right.
It was a place of, first of all, economic sustainability, because they were selling things and making money. It was also planning things. There was also religious activities happening there. It was also, the plaque right now talks about the Humas Indians, but it was more than that. And so because the paradigm has shifted now, we now know that the original Native Americans were people that were copper colored and brown and black Indians. That whole narrative has significantly changed. So I would say we need to add an additional placard to reflect the trueness of what happened, because I don't want us just to be reduced to a jigaboo.
Right.
That's right.
It was dancing in Congo Square.
Right.
It's important. I'm a dancer, so I recognize how important dance is, but we gotta address the form. It was more than that. And I think that's the main thing that I would like to see happen,
Yeah.
change up in Congo Square.
Yeah, I agree. We're quick to, remind people that jazz was born in Congo Square and many other nuances of not just New Orleans culture, but American culture was born in Congo Square. But we don't talk about the spiritual, religious aspect enough for me. Heaven forbid we ever see a day that they got, church in Congo Square before we acknowledge the ethnic, cultural, religious practices and traditions that the Akan, the Fan, the Ewe, the Yoruba, the Igbo brought here with them. And that's why New Orleans was able to reconstitute voodoo and traditional African practice, because we were allowed to do it in that space. And I say all the time, if we could count in Fan or Ewe, we were just forced to learn how to count in Portuguese, Spanish, French. And if you can remember how to count, then you can remember your drum rhythms, your dance patterns, and your ritual days for acknowledging of our saints. So that's a very important component for me. I consider myself an Elagoon or a servant of the ancestors, if you will, in that space. And so that's critical for me, to us maintaining true history in that space, Congo Square. Yeah.
My last statement to the lady in the back about the Civil Rights Museum and the Baton Rouge reference, it actually started in New Orleans because revolts were planned in Congo Square. And I'm just saying, the largest slave revolt that happened in... Right, but what I'm saying is because New Orleans is older than Baton Rouge, first of all.
Point of me actually rivals New Orleans as far as age, it's almost 300 years old.
Almost. Almost.
Yeah, but New Orleans is a brand new place, and it's glad we're here today. I've been fighting the city of New Orleans for the last 30 years. I've been in court with the city of New Orleans, and Tremaine is not the only area of the city that has issues. I'm dealing with the slave cemetery in Algiers.
Exactly.
So,
The whole city
The
of New
reason that
Orleans.
we are here today is because we've been complacent for too long.
I agree with you.
You're
And
right.
And the reality is,
You're right.
we know
Don't
that
leave.
it's not, it's okay, she's just passionate, she's just passionate. A lot of people are, but I'm sorry, you talked about Congress, that's what it brings up, right?
Right.
Vision,
And the
vision,
reality-
vision, so, ideas.
But the reality is, it's not just, we're fighting this fight for City Hall now, but we know it's all over the city.
So,
It's not
yes,
just that, but this is where we are, we focus on this, and that's what we're dealing with. I don't wanna undermine that other neighborhoods are any less significant and have any less history than what's happening right here in Tremaine.
But we also can't overlook the first black free community in America.
And we're not, that's why we, okay, Randall.
To add
we're gonna
on
bring
is
it
that
in.
it has an international significance
Right.
and recognition and identity, a global one, and one that, as you mentioned, those various tribes or cultures or what have you, those still exist. They're still around, and there could be a connection easily made. Jackie knows, you know, we know folks again, and you could bring in. We talk about economic development things on that line. That in itself has international, like I said, recognition, but it has also an international economic drawing card too. That space there, you know, and that's very important. And we need to look at things on an international level, not just on a local level, and tie all of that in. Because what's going on here is going on in Kenya, is going on in Ghana. The exact conversations that we have here, it goes on partially in those particular countries.
Listen, I do. Can I say one real quick? Go ahead.
You're not gonna forget.
Go ahead. No, I just want to add what he said. You know, I got Nigerians that think that my podcast is being broadcast from Nigeria. That's how African New Orleans is. That's how black New Orleans is. So I agree with you. Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
So we talking about Congo Square, and right? That's what
Sacred ground.
Sacred ground.
Congo
So,
Square.
I mean, I love the statue my people did and the thing right there. But then that was a white man's vision of what he thought he saw. What's his name? Who put Harper's Magazine? He drew that picture. And then everything about Congo Square always goes back to the picture that the white man drew about what he thought he saw.
I have to acknowledge, I don't know that.
Oh yeah, no, I know. See, I know a lot of history, but that was a picture that the white man drew in Harper's Magazine back in the 1800s of what he thought he saw in Congo Square. So again, even our visions of what we perpetuate is based on what some visitor who didn't know nothing about what he was looking at saw, and now we perpetuate it. And then to go back to what the brother was saying about the different tribes, it was like at least 42 different tribes present, 42 different African ethnic groups. Maybe something could go down to enhance our storytelling abilities of the space, kind of how they got at Wall Street, the African burial ground in New York, how they got the symbols and the neighbor symbols and levees and all that. Maybe we had a name of all 42 different tribes etched into the circles because they got together based on their ethnic groups to try to remember who they was on Sunday. You know, we would get together in our circle like, oh, I'm Congo, let me get with the Congos. Oh, I'm Yoruba, let me get with the Yoruba. Like, at first it was a separate thing in those circles of tribes just trying to remember themselves on a Sunday outside the purview of just being called T-Neg and Gro-Neg, Travailler. You know, like, that's what my grandma used to call us, you know, my mama. T-Neg, Gro-Neg, they got that off the slave master though. Y'all know what that means. Little nigga, big nigga, you know. But on Sunday, we was Congo, Yoruba, Airway, Igbo, Akam, Mandingo, Limba, Himba, you feel me? Like, so putting some of that back in there from our perspective as opposed to even the things that we perpetuating is a white man's vision of what he thought he saw us doing. And like
So
you
your
said,
vision, I hate to interrupt, so your vision would be to remove?
no, I'm not talking about removing what
I'm
the
just
folks did,
trying to
but I'm
be
saying,
real
but
clear.
Just in
Because if we had
addition
something more
to,
authentic,
in
is what I'm.
addition to, I'm not trying to destroy nothing,
Okay.
but in addition to, you know, just etching different of our symbols and our language, you know.
We'd like to also, can I add something? We would like to also, in Congo Square, because it's used for other spiritual practices, we would like to have access to the park because the park is restricted. So if you want to go to the street or if you want to go do some work in the park, you can't go in because permission to go in
Yeah.
there, and then, it just needs to be more available for spiritual practice.
That's a good point. That's an excellent
We,
point.
we know that New Orleans is predominantly a Catholic city, right? But there's also a large number of African practitioners of other religions here who don't have, and ours religion is outdoor, it's with nature. So you gotta be into the elements, right? So I would like to see something when the commission is in place, because we will be sensitive to the needs of that, allowing those practitioners to have access to the park at the times when they need to, because it's not always during, we don't want to be a spectacle for tourists. It's not for the tourists to come in.
That's right.
It's for after hours. But after hours, the park is closed.
You're right.
So you need access to the park, particularly Congo Square, to be able to do functions that you need to do.
So what I'm hearing you say that sacred grounds is not just two words.
Right.
That some African-American people that lives in New Orleans really adhere to the secrecy or the sacristy of Congo Square, and it should be respected.
Yes.
Okay. So, anyone else? We clearing out the room now, y'all. Congo Square, we knew a lot of people they was not gonna wanna touch it anyways. Luther's out there every Sunday. You go out there on a Sunday, try to touch it. You don't be mad with something. Neighbor ancestor.
Just for what the sister was saying about, so can it somehow, as a sacred site, can we move it out of like parks and office? So it don't have to
Is
be.
that a vision? Are you presenting that as a
Okay,
vision
yeah,
to
yeah,
have
okay.
Congo
Present that as a
Square?
vision. I would like to present that as a vision. Maybe removing the sacred site of Congo Square out of the jurisdiction of parks and parkways, so that we have, it don't have to be for the sundown, close at sundown, lock the gate kind of thing around it, where that would help us have access to it anytime. Because, you know, I live right there and I always see him locking the gate, and I be trying to go get in good with him, so get his phone number so I can see if he could open the gate for me early if I need to get in there and do some stuff, you know, so. But everybody, not me, who can just go talk to the dude.
We're not gonna talk about how we've been locked out, but I think that goes back to what Randolph said earlier in his first comments about the commission, commissioners, okay, having total control. But your thoughts, your ideas, your vision has been recorded. So we have it. Alonzo, I saw your hand up. You put it up there.
No, I'm
Okay.
set it up.
Okay, so do we have, it's 7:30, do we have any more comments? Anybody want a bag of potato chips? Noonie man, you don't have nothing to say?
I'm taking it all in.
You taking it all in?
Everybody said
So when you become mayor, you know what we want, right?
Or if my partner become mayor over there, Mr. Lane, we're gonna co-mayor. We taking it in, you know, we taking it in.
Well, I hope you all are taking
And I'm
it
glad to
in.
see Mr. Randolph Scott, because what he's telling y'all, he's been around for 30 years or more, and what he's telling y'all is all the truth. I left it right at Chalmers fan. He taught it to me, and I'm glad, excited to see him journey y'all, because now I know it's gonna be a bigger fight, because Randolph Scott knows some things.
Noonie man, I had to beg him.
Huh?
Please come,
Well,
please come on Tuesday or Wednesday.
All right.
Because he do have good information. So, any other comments? Natalie, you wanna come in now and say something before we close out? We have about 30 minutes.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out. The cultural preservation of this city is so super important to me. I have a daughter that actually attends this school, Homer Plessy. And we were having a conversation with Mr. Hagler back, and you'd be surprised how many kids that even attend my daughter's school don't even know who Homer Plessy is. I'm a person that's a documentary buff. I watch PBS constantly, and I see our city being highlighted and spotlighted by the cultural community globally, nationally, and you know, this city is already a destination for just that. The municipal auditorium should be treated as a destination the same as the Louvre in Paris. I mean, that's the level of cultural impact that this city has for me particularly, and I can see how fiercely everybody here is protective of that. And you'd be surprised how many people on a global stage feel the same way. I mean, when I see Wynton Marsalis talk about jazz, talk about Louis Armstrong, I mean, it really brings me to tears when I watch those documentaries, and that is just how important it should be to our mayor. You know, I stand on the shoulders of culture bearers like Miss Cheryl, like Asetua, Miss Jackie. I'm just so proud to be a part of this group. And I just want everybody to continue to be unified for the same purpose, because it's not just important to us as New Orleanians, it's important to everyone on this planet.
Excellent.
Jackie, can I introduce some other members or anyone else that is a member of the SOS Coalition that's here? Can you stand, be recognized? We have been putting in a lot of work. A commission has come up more than once. One was actually formed that we did not enact, so you all are on punch.
Right here.
Just like we said earlier, we didn't believe that the vision of the community or residents citywide were different from what we had been saying could happen over there. So this is night 1 of 2, and tomorrow we hope we have a different crowd to get some more input on what needs to happen over there.
Got your commission.
Jackie Harris, she's been serving as the PRO person for SOS. Asatua has been the gatherer of all the information that's been going out on SOS. I'm just like, wherever y'all need me, I'll be, because I've been here in Tremay. Natalie came aboard to help us with the presentation in IT to get us more in line of what needs to take place.
I promise
Bernard is with Magno, but he's volunteering for us tonight. Prince is my neighbor.
Activist, spiritual warrior.
And he's been very involved with the SOS. I'm gonna skip you, Alonzo, and go to Pastor Manny, who has been really our namesake, because he named the group, Save Our Soul, because he saw it and realized that Tremay is the soul of the city, that everything cultural in this city came out of this neighborhood. And so that is sacred grounds over there, and we're standing here to protect it. But Alonzo, if you do have something to say. Oh, and Joan? That is Pastor Manny. Pastor Manny, can you close us out in presses? Thank you, John.
Not just prayer, yes.
Well, just say, yes,
Yeah.
can you close us out? Can you come up here, Ed, because I've been staying